So recently, I got stuck on this story out of the Western Amazon that made every movie you have ever seen about dangerous tribes feel small and fake compared to what is really going on out there. You know how people talk about the Amazon like it is this big empty green blanket? Trees, rivers, animals, and maybe a few villages on the banks. Then you start digging into the reports from the far frontier and you realize there are whole groups of people in there who want absolutely nothing to do with the rest of us. No phone, no internet, no roads, no trading posts. And if you push into their territory without asking, the first hello you get is a silent arrow coming out of the trees. One of the places that keeps coming up when you talk to field people is this reserve on the border of Brazil and Peru, the Javari Valley. You look at it on a map and it is just a tangle of rivers and forests the size of a small country. On paper, it is protected land. On the ground, it is home to more isolated indigenous groups than almost anywhere else on the planet. Some of them have limited contact with neighboring communities. Some of them have had brief, ugly run-ins with missionaries or rubber tappers in the past. Some of them are what they call uncontacted, no established peaceful relationship with the outside world at all. When you talk about the most dangerous tribe in that jungle, you are not talking about evil comic book villains. You are talking about groups whose entire experience with outsiders has taught them one rule: if a stranger appears, they are a threat. And the way they enforce that rule is with weapons they have perfected for generations. There is one group out there that people talk about in whispers. Even the other indigenous communities are careful how they talk about them. In Portuguese, they call them things like arrow people. Not because someone sat down and chose a scary name for a book, but because if you violate their space, you do not see them. You see the arrows. The stories you hear come in fragments. A patrol moving up a remote river for days, monitoring for illegal fishing and mining, when one of the guys on the boat feels something slap the wooden hull near his leg. He looks down, and there is a long arrow stuck almost all the way through the plank, feathers still quivering. Nobody on the boat saw where it came from. The banks are walls of foliage. They kill the engine, drop to the floor, listen. Nothing. Then more impacts. Shafts hitting branches, bouncing off the water, sticking into the roof of the little shelter on the boat. That is how those people talk to you. No warning shot into the air. No shouted words. Just a clear message. This is far enough. The patrol backs out. They are not out there to start a war. Their job is to keep loggers and miners out, not force contact on people who clearly do not want it. They pull the arrows, look at the workmanship, the length, the barbs, the poison smeared near the tip, and every single person on that boat knows they just brushed against a line nobody is supposed to cross. You hear other stories from loggers who tried to push a new track deeper into forest that was supposed to be off limits, because money does not care about maps. A chainsaw crew camps on a riverbank, cuts for a few days, starts to relax. One afternoon, a man walks a little too far from the group just to relieve himself or stretch his legs and does not come back. They find him a few minutes later on the trail with a shaft through his chest. No one saw the archer. No one heard anything except maybe a rustle that did not register until it was too late. From the outside it sounds brutal, and it is, but you have to flick the camera around. From their perspective, it is the simplest logic in the world. Every time someone from the outside shows up with metal and noise, something terrible follows. Disease, land loss, murder, pollution in the river, fish disappearing, trees falling. So they build a rule into the bone. So recently, I got stuck on this story out of the Western Amazon that made every movie you have ever seen about dangerous tribes feel small and fake compared to what is really going on out there. You know how people talk about the Amazon like it is this big empty green blanket? Trees, rivers, animals, and maybe a few villages on the banks. Then you start digging into the reports from the far frontier and you realize there are whole groups of people in there who want absolutely nothing to do with the rest of us. No phone, no internet, no roads. You talk to the neighbors who share that forest, the contacted tribes who have their own villages on the edges, and you get a different perspective. They will tell you these uncontacted groups are not monsters. They are relatives in a distant way. Cousins of cousins. People whose grandparents made a different choice when outsiders started pouring into the region. Some groups decided to deal, to adapt, to get metal tools and medicine, and try to survive that way. Others looked at the epidemics and the massacres and said, we are going the other direction. Deeper in. No more meetings. A lot of the dangerous reputation comes from their tactics. The bow is not some toy. These are long, heavy bows, sometimes almost as tall as the archer, pulling a serious draw weight. The arrows are long and thin, designed to fly far and hit hard. The tips are carved from hardwood or bone, sometimes capped with sharpened metal, scavenged from old tools or boat parts. On top of that, they know plants. They know how to soak or smear those tips in poisons brewed from vines and tree sap. You do not need a massive wound if the substance on that point stops your heart or shuts down your muscles. Imagine trying to move through a forest where the people who live there grew up learning every sound and shadow, and you are the outsider who cannot even tell one bird call from another. They know how to disappear into the undergrowth and then reappear 50 paces away. They can put an arrow through a moving animal at a distance by feel, not by sight, because they practice from childhood. Your best safety is not your courage. It is their decision to let you walk away. And they do more than shoot. Some of those groups set traps along likely approach routes, concealed pits with sharpened stakes at the bottom, hidden under light branches and leaves, spiked logs that can be rolled or swung into a path if they hear outsiders coming, warning markers, like bent saplings or bundles of sticks left on a sandbank that say, "Do not pass this point," if you know how to read them. To someone who does not know, it just looks like jungle garbage. To the people who live there, it is a fence. The crazy part is, they are not even the only ones like that. The Amazon is full of these pockets. You have club-wielding groups in the same region who have a similar level of isolation. They earned a fearsome reputation from a few bloody encounters. Not because they were hunting outsiders for sport, but because every time someone crashed into their world with chainsaws or rifles, they answered with the only tools they had, heavy wooden clubs and ambushes. Over the border in Peru, you have uncontacted bands who have started appearing on riverbanks near logging camps, watching from the trees. There have been instances where loggers pushing too far into those reserves ended up dead with arrows in them. When news comes out, the headlines say, "Hostile tribe attacks workers," and it sounds one-sided. The fine print is that those workers were breaking the law by going into territories that are supposed to be completely off limits, because the people inside have no immunity to outside diseases. There are even groups deeper in Brazil that we only know from camera traps. Hidden devices set along game trails catch images of people passing through, naked or nearly naked, faces painted, carrying bows so long they almost drag, walking single file. Some of those images show tall palisades, skull totems, traps set across narrow paths. Everything about it says, "Stay away. This is not your road." Here is the important thing. When Brazil or Peru officially draws a line around those territories and says, "No entry without permission," it is not just to be nice. It is because contact kills. When a small, isolated community suddenly gets hit with influenza or measles or coronavirus, they do not have the antibodies we do. A sickness that would put you in bed for a week can take out half a village. On top of that, outsiders bring violence. Illegal miners do not want witnesses. Drug runners do not want patrol seeing their routes. Missionaries sometimes push themselves in where they have been told not to go. So the governments, under pressure from indigenous groups and international organizations, adopted this non-contact policy for many of these tribes. You protect the border. You watch from a distance. You might drop tools or metal pots at the edge of their range if there is some agreed signal that they want that. But you do not walk in. You do not shake hands. You do not stand there breathing on people whose immune systems are not ready. The problem is that policy on paper and reality on the ground are two different things. The same rivers that lead into those remote reserves are also highways for illegal fishing, cocaine routes, and timber. The people paid to defend the land are under-resourced and outgunned. You end up with this insane situation where the only thing standing between some of these uncontacted families and a bulldozer or a dredge is their own reputation for being very, very dangerous to anyone who steps over the line. When you say no one knows them, that is not just clickbait. We literally do not know what they call themselves, what stories they tell around their fires, what they think about when they watch a metal canoe go past on the river. We piece together their movements from clearings spotted on satellite images, tracks left in the mud, and the testimony of neighboring tribes who sometimes hear their signals in the night. A whistle here, a drumbeat there, those neighbors will tell you they are feared, yes, but also respected. They are like a storm at the edge of your map. You know where not to go. You teach your kids where the invisible border is. If a foreigner shows up asking to be taken deeper into that forest for adventure, the smart guides say no. Not just because they are scared of the tribe, but because they understand the risk cuts both ways. An outsider's body can carry more danger into that territory than any machete. There is another level to this that is easy to miss. In a weird way, these so-called dangerous tribes are some of the best guardians of the forest. Look at a map of deforestation, and it is brutal. You see these big bites taken out of the Amazon where cattle ranches, soy fields, and mines have eaten forest. Then you zoom into the territories where indigenous people still control the land, especially the ones with isolated groups inside, and the green is still solid. Trees are standing, rivers are clear. The fear that keeps intruders out is the same fear that keeps the chainsaws out. So yeah, if you are a gold miner sneaking up a forbidden river in a metal boat, those people are absolutely the most dangerous tribes you could run into. They do not want your money. They do not want your fuel. They want you gone before you bring the next wave of sickness and guns, and they will happily put an arrow through your boat or your shoulder to make the point. But if you are sitting in a city on another continent watching this, the real question is not, how scary are they? The real question is, how scary are we to them? Think about being born in a world where the loudest thing you hear is a thunderstorm. You grew up listening to birds, insects, wind in the canopy. Then one day a roaring metal dragon comes over the trees, spitting smoke and chopping the air. A boat with an outboard engine blasts up your river, leaving a chemical smell. A man gets sick a week after they pass and dies. Another gets shot confronting poachers. You would start to treat that sound as a curse. You would tell your children, if you see that kind of canoe, you do not wave. You hide. If they step onto our beach, you shoot. I do not think of them as the most dangerous tribe in the Amazon like they are some horror movie. I think of them as the last people on earth who still have the option to say no and have it mean something. They do not have an army. They do not have lawyers. They have a patch of forest, bows, traps, and a reputation that makes even tough guys think twice. The sad part is, their danger will only last as long as the outside world lets that line hold. If we keep pushing roads, pipelines, and logging into those corners, the arrows will not be enough. Disease and bullets travel farther than any bow shot. So the real defense has to come from us respecting those no-go zones on the map, from treating that most dangerous tribe label as a giant warning sign for ourselves, not a challenge. Because the truth is, they are not a mystery to themselves. They are just people living the only way they know how, raising kids under the canopy, telling stories by firelight, hunting, fishing, arguing, laughing, doing all the normal human stuff. The only thing that makes them dangerous is that they have drawn a hard boundary around their world and they are still willing to defend it with everything they have.